Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. Um, I don't think too many people are going to like this video because the first reason is I don't think most of my viewers are really interested in this subject. And the other is because I know that even by my standards, this one's going to be pretty scatterbrained. Like I know this is something I want to talk about, but I'm not really sure where I'm going with it. So the subject of the video, as you saw, is, work from home. And in particularly, the companies and the federal government now really having, what is it, RTO, return to office, mandates, some even for 5 days a week, some for hybrid schedules and some for 5 days a week. So it's just got me thinking a lot about it. And the truth is, for me, this is a very emotional subject, because of how much I associate work from home with the pandemic. And I still haven't, I'm getting better, but I still haven't gotten over all my anger issues, about the pandemic. I've gotten over the way that Trump, his family, his supporters were treated, during the first, Trump administration, and during, the persecution during the second Trump administration. I'm over that. I still think it was bad, but even if I didn't like it, we can move on. I'm not totally over the pandemic stuff, and like I've said before, I think part of it is, I know part of it is because my own mental health was so bad during the pandemic, and it wasn't because of the pandemic, it was because of some other shit. Pandemic may have made it worse. It certainly made it more difficult to get treatment in some cases. But to me, I'm always going to associate those years with that mental state I was in. And then the other is just, just because of how rotten everything was. And, not only was it bad and it was bullshit, but maybe it's different for you guys, but me, coming from a really liberal family, just knowing how much my family fucking loved it, that they had the time of their life during the pandemic, and that if it were up to them, they would have kept it going forever. Now, me being mad about that is stupid. It's done, whatever. I think it's done. They've moved on. I should move on. And it's I don't want it to sound like I was just something here I'm here stewing over. I get that people have different perspectives and they think different ways, and if they really loved the pandemic and all that shit, then that's fucked up, but okay, it's not really my problem. I mean, kind of was during the pandemic, because like I said, if they had had their way, we would have been wearing masks forever. They would have pushed all the vaccine mandates through, all that bullshit. I mean, I think I told you guys before that, I got so angry at my mom during the pandemic that we got in a fight over it, that I threatened to kill her. I was that angry. And it was I was just screaming at her on the street. We were walking, and I was just screaming at her out on a public street, and probably woke some people up. it was night. And I wouldn't do something like that today, and that was wrong of me. I mean, don't get me wrong, she had provoked me, but yeah. So I think, getting to this, it's a subject that I'm very emotional about, maybe too emotional about, and I associate work from home with the pandemic. Now, me, and again, I know if you guys have seen my other stuff, this is all rehashed, so I apologize, but I hate work from home. I despise it. And, growing up, and, before I really got started in the professional world or working world, I always thought of work from home as the ideal. It was something I wanted to do. Yet my experience with it has been so bad that I don't want to do it. at all. And it probably, it mostly relates to my own psychological state, because it really, for me, and I know that not everybody's like this, but for me, um, work from home feels like I'm working all the time. And like, it is extremely important for me that there's separation between my home and my work life. I don't want any, I like, when I'm done with work, I'm done. That's it. You know, I'm like that's why one of the reasons, probably the main reason, I can't work any kind of job that has like an irregular schedule when they're giving you like different hours every week. Can't do that, because I need to know like when I'm done, I'm done. It needs to be stable. But beyond even that, those are times where you can get called in. Like if somebody is like, oh, they've missed their, they can't make it to their shift today. Can you cover for them? No, can't do it. You know, because when I'm done, I'm done. And I don't want my work. And even if you could say, well, work from home, okay, but you shut the computer off at 6, it's still there. You know, I don't want it. I don't want it in my house. Okay, I don't want any of this shows. So for me, it's something that I really strongly detest. And the reasonable response to that is, okay, well then you don't have to work from home. Let the people who like it do it. I hear you. I get it, and I'm totally for that. And I don't want to begrudge anybody who does prefer working from home, because apparently most people do, and for understandable reasons. And I get where I totally get where they're coming from, but it's just like, again, getting back to the whole emotional side of it, what I'm trying to say is that because I dislike work from home so intensely, I think maybe sometimes it colors my view towards work from home, even for other people. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to say that here, so I would prefer, okay, that anybody who wants to work from home is able to do so. Okay, so that's not the issue. I'm not trying to be something like, well, since I have to go in, you have to too. Like, I don't. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't some of those feelings in there, but if it were up to me, I would prefer that anybody who wants to work from home be able to do that. Then now it's just like where we get into it now. Like, why are people being called back, and how are people responding to it? And then, so this gets into the more of like the resentment, like the anti-liberal resentment and stuff. If people have been working remote for a long time, pretty much forever, you've had people working from remote. Obviously it got a lot bigger during the pandemic, but it was already expanding even before that. But what does really irritates me is like the sense of entitlement that I feel like from all these workers who are going back. Like, if you I get it, you prefer to work from home. Okay, I get that. That's fine. But like, it's like, if you want to work from home, then find a job that lets you work from home. What annoys me is when I see people like getting angry about being called back in to the office. It's like, if you're upset about it, then get another job, do something else. And, I know it's not that easy, but it's, again, it's seeing it firsthand in my own family, where a lot of people, unsurprisingly, in my liberal family are government workers, federal government workers. And the anger sort of that they had when there was, this was before Trump, this was during Biden, when they got called back to a few days a week. Just like that, they were so pissed about it. It's like, dude, you work for the fucking government, like, get the fuck out of here, man. It's like, go do something else. And, if it's so terrible. And it's just such an entitled attitude, I think, just to I mean, yeah, they're doing it, but like, to even the fact that they would be angry about it, again, shows this level of entitlement. And I get the anger. It's because A, that you don't want to go back, and B, you are producing just as much, if not more, at home. Why do you have to go back? It's like, okay, and that gets to the next thing. Well, it's not just about you. If you go and you read if you go to read anything about the work from home debate, you can't go like 2 seconds without finding somebody saying like, well, I'm way more productive working from home. It's like, it's not about you. The thing is, it's like, it's about the whole. And don't get me wrong, like, a lot of the stuff that they say that the corporate people or the return to office people say about like workplace culture, like, that's abstract. I don't know what it means. and it's probably bullshit. But like you personally may be more productive, but is it like from a company's perspective, is it more productive? And I've even heard about it from like my family members who do work in the government who are, upset now because they've got to go back to full time, whereas it had been 3 weeks before. And these were the same people who were upset about having to go to 3 days a week in person are now saying like, well, hybrid would be ideal for this job. Like I would prefer to do 3 days a week because there are certain things that it is a lot easier to do with them in the office and other people in the office. And it just makes it more complex. And so like it may be, it's not about like how much work you're getting done. It's how much work, how it's going over for the company. Because if it was just about you, the company doesn't need you as an employee, if that's all it is. You would just work for them as a contractor or a consultant. So the thing is, if you're that valuable and you're that much more productive at home, well then maybe your calling is, if you can't find another remote job, is to do something as a consultant. It says consultant, which is remote. Because if you're not that, if you're an employee, I could understand why they would want you on site. And let me give you an example from my own job. Okay. We have, in my office, there's a total of 4 people. The owner, the office manager, a woman who you could give as kind of a secretarial type role, and me, the part-timer. So, you could even say it's 3.5 people. I'm the only person who doesn't work any remote stuff, okay? But the woman who maybe excuse me, who maybe does some, she'll do occasionally some sales stuff that she gets commission for at home. I don't even do that. She never gets any wage from home. Like if she's not in the office, she's not getting paid. However, the owner of the company, obviously, he's not getting paid, period. It's his business. He gets what he gets. But the office manager does have at least 1 day a week, sometimes more than that, where he's allowed to work from home. And he gets this perk because he's best friends with the manager best friends with the owner, and he's been there a long time, and they have a really good relationship and trust and stuff. So there's a resentment on, I don't care, whatever, but on the part of the one woman I'd mentioned, right, who is never allowed to do paid work from home. She's never permitted to do paid work from home. And obviously if she wants to finish sales stuff on her own time, she can do that and get comp for it, but she can't take calls from home, service calls from home, and get paid for it. That's not something the company owner is willing to do for her. Or not the company, the business owner is willing to do for her. And, I get it how, why that would bother her, why she wants to work from home. And I also get to her, from her perspective, it probably doesn't really make sense, because there's times it's from her perspective, there's times where she can't make it in. It's not realistic for her to get into the office. But, she can still take a big load off, and be in the office. Not being in the office, but she can take calls from home and do stuff from home and still get a lot done. And if that stuff doesn't get done, I don't know if you can say she's going to get quite as much done, but she should get pretty close to the same amount of productivity done. If the same amount of stuff is going to get done, when it doesn't get done, it all falls on us. Those of us, who are still at the office, it's just more work for us. So why not, if she can't make it in anyway, why not at least make it a win-win, have her, do the work from home, and again, less work for us. Everybody's happy, right? Hell, I'm an employee there. I would prefer that. Insofar as I care, which I really don't. So why not? It's well, I can see though, from the perspective of our boss, the company, the business owner, who is not a hard ass about attendance or showing up on time or anything like that. He's probably he's the most laid back boss I've ever seen about it on that stuff. So, but the thing is, like, if he's paying you, he wants you to be in the office, and it's like, does it logically make sense? Honestly, no, not when I think about it. If it was my business, I'd feel the same way. Like, what Elon Musk said to his employees, or to the employees who didn't want to return to the office, he said, pretend to work somewhere else. Which is obviously, an unfair statement, because obviously, we've got data showing that, and anecdotal and survey data showing that people are doing a lot of work from home and they're being productive and they're getting a lot done. So, but if you're the one writing the checks, I'm just trying to say, if you were the one writing the checks, would you feel that way? And I can also, I don't know, like, my sister works remotely, and she likes working remotely, but she recently got promoted to a supervisory role, which she had never been before. And she's having a difficult time with it. And I think a large part of the difficulty is due to the remote work. And so I can understand, like, when, like, I think this, like, criticism of managers that they want employees to return to the office because A, it's a power trip thing, or B, they want it as an excuse for their, or prevention of them being incompetent. They can say, hey, look, I'm managing all these employees. They're showing up in the office, as opposed to, like, well, why aren't we getting the results we need? To say, look at my results. I've got people here in the office. They've got something to show. Like, I'm sure those two things I just mentioned are factors in why you see managers, people in management positions, pushing so strongly for return to office. But I think there's just something to it, that it's just easier. It's just easier and it works better. And again, like I said, going back to my one aunt who works in the federal government and was furious. And she said all her coworkers were furious too when they got called back to 3 days a week, because they were being productive at working from home fully. And they said, but after it happened, like, she told me that if it were up to her, like, and she's really pissed about having to go back to 5 days a week, but she said, she'd rather work fully remote than 5 days a week in office, but that she would prefer a hybrid schedule, just because it really does make certain things of her job a lot easier, to have something. So there really is some value into going into the office. That value is absolutely there. It's not just like corporate dinosaurs and boomers. Boomers are often the people. Hell, my aunt is a boomer. Boomers are often the people who are most enthusiastic about work from home. There really are. I think that's one thing that has to be clear. Maybe the most important thing that has to be clear is that there really are advantages to the office. And then when you go beyond that, if there's, like, in some fields, it's not even advantages. In some fields, it's just absolutely necessary. And when I've been researching this, I've seen people talk about stuff. Some people talk about in their industries how things still haven't even recovered to the pre-pandemic. Like, things that even now, 5 years later, they have things where something that pre-pandemic could be resolved in 15 seconds now takes 2 weeks to resolve, because you have to, and I'm sure that's an extreme example, but that kind of stuff does happen. Most jobs, it's not that desperate. But there is something to it. So, and that, like, anyway, so the federal government's bringing everybody back to 5 days a week. They'd already brought them back for 3 days a week. And then you're seeing more companies who are either fully remote saying, okay, well, now you got to come in 3 days. And then a lot of companies who are at 3 days saying you got to come in full time. You have to come in 5 days a week. And again, like, look, I would prefer that anybody who wants to be able to work remote can do so. But I also, getting back to the whole pandemic thing, like, to me, I feel like the pandemic won't fully be over until things are the way they were before the pandemic. And doesn't mean if more people are now working remote, okay, but the and if more people are able to find jobs like contractor jobs, or whatever, working remote, awesome, great, I'm all for that. But like the bigger companies, especially, and maybe this is like a mean thing to say, I don't know, but I want things to go. I want everything to go back to the way it was. I want to know that the pandemic is totally over and that we've gone back to normal. And people are working. I mean, it doesn't even have to be 5. Maybe we get rid of a work day. Maybe instead of 5 days a week, we go to 4 days a week. I'd love that. You know, so like it's not. I don't want people to be miserable. Like even the people who were all supportive of the pandemic and loved it, I don't want them to be miserable. It's not about them. It's about me. I want things to be how they were. I want the pandemic to really be over. That's why I'm into all this, return to work stuff, or return to the office stuff. And although, yeah, no, I feel bad. I feel bad about the people who have to go back, and it's really hard for them. But I don't. I guess, again, going back to my problem is more the entitled attitude. As I was saying, like there's people out there who feel like they have a right to work from home. It's like, not if you're an employee. If you get a remote job, or be a contractor. Be a freelancer or a contractor stuff. Then you can work remote. Then you're entitled. Then you have the entitlement. But if you're an employee, no, I mean, they're the ones paying you. They make the rules, it's like, and like, you don't have to tell me how much that sucks. I'm hardly a model employee, or, even a functional one in any job that I've ever been in. So, I'm not going to lecture you about that, but as long as they're writing you the check, they get to set the rules. It seems fair, right? So, but anyway, there are, though, some, like a lot of companies. So anyway, the federal government's coming back full time. I think AT&T is coming back full time. Like this is stuff I'd never thought would happen. I mean, the federal government I knew would eventually happen once a Republican got in charge, especially Trump. But like companies like AT&T and some of the like tech companies and stuff coming back saying you got to show up for 5 days a week. I thought that would never happen. So go figure. But some companies are going the other way. Like, again, I was researching for this video. AT&T, well, I was researching just because of researching, not really for the video. But AT&T and Yelp are both, not AT&T, I'm sorry, DirecTV and Yelp. I both went they went the other way. They went to like a full remote view, like back in like 22 or even earlier, where they're just committed to being 100% remote. And they have seen their productivity and their profitability really rise. And then my brother works for a startup that's fully remote. And I don't know if they're really growing, but they're doing well. So, it got me thinking, and this is something that I thought about from the beginning. When they were saying like, okay, well, we won't go back to 5 days a week in the office, but we'll do some days in the office and then some days remote. And it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense to me, right? Like if it can be done fully remote, why have any days in the office? Like, why spend the money on the office space and all that shit? And that's where you see companies like Yelp and DirecTV who are thriving doing the fully remote thing. I don't think that and it makes a lot of sense, because I really thought that, let's say, even if the pandemic got like totally defeated, there was nothing about it, like, and I thought this all the way back in 2021 or even 2020. It's like, why would any of the places go back to in person? Because why pay for the office space? It doesn't make any sense. If you're already shown that the profitability is actually greater, if anything, why go back to it? And I got to be honest, I still haven't received a satisfactory answer for that. I don't know if it's just like, just a part of the human condition or what. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, excuse me. So but anyway, but the companies like Yelp and DirecTV who've been able to really have success with it, well, there's a couple things going on there. One is they, part of their corporate culture is the whole fully remote thing. They're not trying to do it hybrid both ways. In fact, I think the Yelp CEO said that hybrid is hell. It doesn't work. So if you're going to do it hybrid, then fuck it, like you might as well just have them come in full time, and that makes sense. So if there's certain things where you essentially have to come in at least some of the time, then I think you get to a stage where it really does become the most efficient thing for the company to have everybody in full time. However, if you're in a thing where it's where you can be productive being fully remote, just do the fully remote and don't worry about any of the hybrid stuff. I'm sure like even Yelp and DirecTV have some offices. They have some stuff that they have to do in person. You're always going to have to at least have a skeleton thing to do some stuff in person. But if there's like any meaningful amount of work that needs to be done in person, that we need to bring them in even like one day a week, then the most efficient thing is to just bring them in 5 days a week. That's my interpretation of how things are going over. But if you have a place where you can do it fully remote, then yeah, there's a lot of benefits for it because A, you can get the best talent because first of all, people want to work remotely, so you have access to there. And secondly, you can recruit from the whole planet. But that kind of gets back to things like this idea that remote work is a good thing for the workers. I'm not convinced that's true because, like, again, most workers, maybe they're not quite as bad as me, but they're very replaceable. They're very replaceable people, and like I can't even compete with the people locally in my area. How am I supposed to compete with the whole planet? If you were going to have a truly like remote economy, you'd have a lot of us would just be unemployable. I mean, obviously, some jobs can't be made remote, but I'm just saying. So it's not necessarily as much of an advantage to the employees as you might think. And another thing that I thought of, and it's been said, is if it can be done remotely, it can be done from India. But then it gets back to the thing of like, well, there's some things where you need them to be in the area or need to be on site for sometimes. But in that case, if you do need them in some of the time, then maybe it's more efficient to bring them in all the time, at least in some cases. Whereas companies like Yelp or DirecTV, it's part of their recruitment is that they're recruiting everywhere. They're not something like the people who are like on hybrid schedules, like where they're coming in 1 to 3 days a week, those people are all local to the area because they have to be close enough to do that 1 to 3 days worth of commuting. So in those cases, you need somebody local. So why not bring them in all the time? And if you don't need somebody local, like Yelp or DirecTV, well, then you can hire from wherever. And then most average employees aren't going to be in the running for jobs like that because they're going to be pulling from, a global talent pool. So, Yelp and DirecTV are having a lot of success with the fully remote thing, and good for them and good for their employees. But I don't know if that's applicable to like most or all. It's definitely not applicable to all companies. I don't think it's applicable to most companies. I really do think that, and we don't have any numbers for it, but I really do think that return to office may be the most efficient thing for most of these companies that are doing it. Even if I admit that mathematically it doesn't make sense, because again, why would you want to spend on the extra real estate if you're making more money the other way? So I don't know. But it can't be that bad because these companies, if work from the office was so inefficient, then why would so many companies who are doing it being competitive? Like you don't have to like Tesla or Elon Musk, but the company wasn't profitable. Like Twitter was a financial sink before he took over. Yeah, it lost a lot of its value, but it's profitable now. So, and Tesla is profitable. So obviously, it's not some big disadvantage to be working from the office. These are companies that are really well run and doing really well. So what else? Oh, right. So anyway, my brother's company is another example. It's like that's a small shop. You know, I think there's like 12 employees total. It's a very tech-focused business, which translates, you know, even pre-pandemic, you saw a lot of fully remote tech stuff. Like when I got out of coding school back in the first, well, I went to coding school twice, but my first coding job in 2016 was fully remote. Everybody on the team was remote. And that was an hourly position, not a contract position. 2015, when I graduated my first tech school, a lot of our employees, a lot of the kids, most of the people who I kept in touch with, who got their first jobs were remote. So, you know, tech stuff has always really lent itself to being something the remote. And my brother's not a programmer, but again, it's a tech type job. And so when you have like a small business or a tech focused business, and some businesses just really lend really well to it, like small startup things. And, you know, and I think that it's a big advantage for those types of businesses because they're more flexible to take advantage and save on the real estate. But big companies by their nature are inflexible. And for them, it may be the other way around. And that's why we're seeing this return to the office stuff. So, you know, like I said, my sister is still fully remote. My sister-in-law is very close to being fully remote. She has to like go for like works in person like one day a month or something. And but yeah, I don't know. And then my brother-in-law is fully remote. But the thing is, like my sister, for instance, everybody in her company, except for like her narrow team, which is focused on the tech side, is back in the office. And then my brother-in-law is in finance, and again, more on the technical side. So his thing, it's mostly, you know, I think his company is mostly, you know, the whole financial industry is mostly in person, but they make exceptions for some tech stuff. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But everybody else, you know, if you're not in that specialized tech role, which can genuinely be done just as well, you know, outside of just as well outside of the office, then you're seeing people come back, you know, like I said, for at least 3 days. And I guess this year we're going to see more for 5 days. So yeah, sorry about this video. That's all for now. See you in the next.